Hi. Well, I travelled 2,346 miles and I visited beautiful places, glorious landscapes, wonderful people, looking at the farms, what they do, how people have changed the way they're doing things, how one thing has worked better than the other, how people are developing their land using the pig rooting mixture, coming up with different ideas of how they are coping, especially with the last 2 years of the pandemic, and how things have changed. And it was just glorious. It was just a joyful experience. It really was. I mean, the landscape, I can't begin to tell you how it changes from county to county. I started my journey at 5:45 on a Saturday morning, and I arrived from West Devon to Milton Keynes, popped in to see Eve and Chris Atkins, looked at their farm, what they're doing, their breeds of pigs. Of course, they have Oxford Sandy and Blacks. They've got poultry. They've got a livery, and the hard work. What everybody is doing is it shows. It shows the enthusiasm that they're doing and how they're growing, and it's just so clear. And I just wish Eve and Chris great success with what they're doing. I then left from Eve and Chris, and I went up to Nottinghamshire, just outside of Mansfield, where I met a chap called Darren Ashton. Darren used to keep pie trains and Durocs. And again, beautiful area where he lives, different landscape altogether. How he's keeping his OSBs. He also has a little cottage industry, which he called it, which was creating wooden tables from very historic trees. So he was going to, or he is not going to at all, but he's kindly making some, or a table for the charity, for the Oxford Sandy Black Pig Group charity, so we can raffle it off. And that, that was a surprise, and really very generous. From Darren, I left and drove up to Humberside, where I met Tracy and Alistair Logan. And again, the landscape was different, flatter. And I must tell you, at this stage, the weather was absolutely glorious. It was beautiful weather. Met Tracy and Ali, seeing their home again, their pigs, what they're doing, their farm shop, selling their meat has been absolutely a great hit, been very successful. Tracy also keeps, together with Ali, they've got some fantastic horses, and you'll have to forgive me, I can't remember the breeds. I didn't even actually ask, but I think anybody who is on Tracy and Ali's Facebook page will see the magnificent horses that they've got. They also run a couple of sheep, or a few sheep, and it was just lovely to sit down, to talk, to see how they're appreciating where they live and what they do and how they're doing things, and the time and the effort as well was very apparent with meeting everybody on that Saturday. Is the time and the effort that they do, but most of all, they enjoyed what they were doing, and no doubt it was hard work, but my goodness me, what they were doing was just showed in buckets loads. It was fantastic. I made my way to Keighley in North Yorkshire, where I stayed, and then from there I made my way up to Scotland. And my goodness me, again, different scenery, and the weather was fantastic. And there I met Edward and Anita Withers. Beautiful place they live, glorious landscape yet again. And looking at the different soil structures as well in everybody's county, again, was really different. But people were growing the rooting mixture. Some people were looking at their soil structure, beg your pardon, was a little bit more dense, more compact, but they were using the rooting mixture to help the soil, the structure of the soil, and it was evident it growed better in other counties than others. And I think Ed and Anita's soil, if I remember correctly, was a fine soil. And the pigs looked very relaxed. The sun was shining again. It was just absolutely great. I came away with some lemon honey, which was very nice, thank you. And then from there, I visited Christopher and Fee Moss in Cumbria. And there, the transition, I knew I was in deep Scotland, although it was the Scottish borders, but I passed the sign for the Dumfries and Galloway, and I was going, I am in the mountains here. And again, the landscape was beautiful. I drove through the Yorkshire Dales, the stone walls, beautiful, beautiful stone walls. Made it to Christopher and Fee's property, saw their pigs, saw their geese, looking at again different soil structure with Chris and Fee. Again, the rooting mix was had taken really well. The way that Chris and Fee do their work around their farm, very well organised, their feeding areas. What was really apparent in all of my journey was how everybody and the family enjoy what they're doing, and it was just family orientated, everybody getting mucked in, and it was how everybody shares the workload as well. I mean, we had people, little fly, we had people sharing the workload, so the husbands would be working, so the wives are working again with the children, and it was just I don't know, it was it very humbling, very well organized. Things were structured, everything had its place, and sometimes it looked a bit chaotic, or that was their words. Where everybody that I met was a bit chaotic, but it was an organized chaos. I think that's the term that we like to use. I left Chris and Fee and Cumbria, and I went on to see Steph and Andrew Nightingale in Darwin, Lancashire. I got to them about 7:30 in the evening of Monday, and it was getting dark, but I was greeted by the whole family, which was lovely. Thomas and Katie, which were the two children, were still up and very proudly showing me their pigs, their barn, and their little piglet called Bertie. And we had a look around what they were doing and listening to how things have again changed for them over the last 2 years, which is enhancing the pork of the Oxman Sandy Black, and how they have got the public and their clientele around them to appreciate the pork and what it was all about, to raise your own and keep your own, and the flavour is fantastic, and this is exactly what they have achieved. So it was from there, I think I'd left poor Steph and Andrew and family. I think it was about 9 o'clock I left, and I got back to the hotel around about, I think, 9:45. So that was my Monday. And then Tuesday I made my way home, where I went to Wigan, and I met Jane and Mike Carter. Jane and Mike Carter. Now, this was a totally different family, who are predominantly sheep orientated and have the Oxfords to grow on for meat. Again, it's a whole family setup. Jane has, it's her family farm. It's been in the family farm for years. She described herself described her father as a millionth generation farmer. And the farm was very well organised, well worked out. They had been doing the sheep, their weighing, the way they sheep. They had the boards. You would have seen it on the charity Facebook group where they showed us they have information boards of all the medicines that they've written, how much the lambs weighed. They had a sick bay area. They also had a room where all the sheep come in for an area where they're sheared, where they're vaccinated if need be, their feet are clipped. It was very, very well organised. They then took me out into their woodland where they showed and had a structure set out for all their meat weaners that they bring in. And already they themselves had mentioned that they had sold, I think out of the 8 weaners that they had already sold 3. And the woodland that they took me to is so well organised, all nicely laid out. And they showed a very interesting pole. Now, we discussed this about metal stakes. It first kicked off when I think Andrew Rock from Sunnyside Smallholding was showing us that he used metal posts with sheep netting attached, and they were, and most of us were asking, how is this? Do you run this along with electric fence? Is the whole thing set up with electric fence? Well, looking at Mike and Jane's setup, these metal stakes, which I will show you in a minute, you'll see some photographs. They are metal stakes with a metal pole, and it takes something like, they said, 30 to 40 seconds to bash in. You lay the sheep netting down on the ground, you lift it up, and you basically peg it into little slots in the stakes. Brilliant, fast, efficient. Up it went, and so I did a little video to show how it all worked. We usually have a spirit level too, but we forgot it. Again, they have their children that help them. Their son, Ben, I've forgotten how old he was now, but he can actually drive the digger. And Lucy wrote in the newsletter just a little bit about what it's like being a child living on the farm in the middle of nowhere, basically, and how it's basically, I think the article that we called it, which we like children to do every quarter, it's called Farming Through the Eyes of a Child, and I think Lucy captured it quite well, what it's nice to be like, and hopefully we will carry some, because I think it's important to hear how the children not cope, but deal with their lives in farming, and not necessarily farming, but in smallholding, because it's all the same. It's everything. The parents are going out, the children are following behind or taking part, and they do come up with some brilliant ideas. So after I left Jane and Mike, I went on to visit from Wigan. I went to Wales, and I visited Lydia Johnson, which is Conway Valley Meats, and she showed me her setup. And you may have remembered with Lydia, she suffered terrible floods, her and her son Thomas, and her partner, and they decided that enough was enough, and they built their own barns. So come hell or high water, when winter comes this year and the water levels rise, they will have somewhere dry. So they're all prepared. They've got themselves all ready and all sorted. Lydia was one of the people who qualified for our genetic spread allowance. She travelled from Wales down to Devon and picked up a couple of sows, and she showed me them and the weaners that she has. She also showed me her farm shop with her genetic spread allowance certificate on the wall, her freezers, the meat board that's out, and just showing how organized and people turning up again at her door to say, have you got any sausages, have you got any bacon, burgers, joints, and again Lydia said the same thing. People are buying, they are enthusiastic, they are happy to support their local pork producers. So from Lydia, I then went and visited Richard and Jenny Lee, who were down, funnily enough, they were only about 15-20 minutes away. So off I went down there. Another beautiful farm, met his two sows, Walnut and Sorrel, who were beautiful area again. The sun was shining, the pigs looked happy, they were out in their fields. Richard showed me around, and it was just his chickens, his geese that he had, really, really, really interesting setups, how people are going nearby for their boars, and when their next planning how they're going to, you know, when their next litters are going to be. I can tell you it was a wonderful time. And then from Wales I then drove over to Oxford, and I got to Oxford about 20 to 8 in the evening, my last stop, and I was very graciously received by Mandy Appleby and her family, who showed me around their setup. Again, they've not recently started, but they are new, and they have got some nice breeding sows, and all hand built by their son, who is a clever sausage basically. And they gave me their time, and I left them about 9 o'clock, and I walked into the door at midnight. But it was just fantastic. And what I had seen and what I had witnessed and how I was wonderfully received was just was beautiful, really lovely. But it was what was apparent is that the people who are producing, or all of you lot that are producing the pork, it's apparent that people are coming to you again and again and again. And it looks like that the last 2 years have proven to the public that the person who is up the road, who is producing the pork that they looked at beforehand as being expensive, it's better to go to Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, whatever their normal supermarket outlet is. Because they didn't want to travel, they didn't want to mix with people, they gave their local pork farm shop a go. And because of that, they keep coming back for more. And they are buying into the fact that it is local. They're buying into the fact that they can speak to the breeders, speak to the people who are breeding these pigs or bringing these weaners on, seeing the environment that they live in, seeing how they're looked after, and being able just to see the animal welfare, see how they are brought up. And that is why the pork that you are producing is flying off the shelves. People are asking for more. There are people now that are now looking at buying the pork. They've got orders in for Christmas already, and this is all about you, your hard work, your efforts, what you've put into it, showing everybody that this is what it's all about. And people are buying pork. They are buying Oxford and Sandy Black pork because we're all working hard. We're all showing that it's high welfare, well looked after pigs that are brought on by you. And I think the more this happens, the more people will understand that it's not just local, it's British, it's brought up with love, enthusiasm, and it's a family orientated thing. It's just so obvious that all of you work so hard. What also I learnt as well traveling and speaking to everyone, is some of the mileages that you travel to go and look for these abattoirs. I think the most traveled was 2.5 hours. And I do know that Fiona McLennan and Tristan travel 6 hours because they do the ferry, and you would have seen that story in our very first newsletter that we did. So we are discussing and talking to people with regards to the abattoirs, and to seeing how we can help and benefit. But you're doing it because you love it, and that is what counts. So I enjoyed everything. I was warmly welcomed. Would I do it again? Yes, I blinking well will. But I think next year, I think I'm most probably going to have to concentrate on certain areas, because there were some places that I couldn't get around to. But I'm hoping that I will next year. But next year we will be concentrating on our show and sale. So I hope we will have your support from that, please. Do keep in touch with us with what we're doing. You know where we are. We're on the OxfordandSandyBlackPigGroup.org on the website. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. We're writing newsletters. You'll see us in various publications, keeping everybody up to date. And, our next show and sale, we'll be publicising that. And it'd be great to see everybody. So, let's thank you so much for your support. And I think I'm right in saying that the Oxford and Sandy Black Pig Group is the only breed-specific group that is a registered charity. So we are now known as the Oxford and Sandy Black Pig Group Foundation Charity. And I love what I'm doing, and I do it because I love it. I enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy being a part of the charity. Thank you.